Will that deter them from carrying a knife a third time?
Well, it's a part of deterrence, it's punishment, and we need to look at other ways to try and prevent them carrying a knife in the first place. But I think it will help. I'm listening to those like the police who are saying when the mandatory sentences came in place in relation to guns, it did have an impact. And we need to send an important message from Parliament, as we've done, and now it's going to be enforced that anyone carrying a knife should expect the law to be tough and for them to go to jail. So it will help, but we need to work a long way before that to stop them carrying a knife in the first place, because we know it's not only the consequences of jail, the consequences, as we heard in your report, is fatal for people, whether they're carrying a knife for their own protection, whether they're part of a gang. One way or the other, they could well end up losing their life, and that's the main consequence. But as far as those who want to take the risk of carrying a knife, they know from tomorrow that they're likely to go to jail.
Yvonne, what would you say to anybody who still carries a knife? What would your message be to them?
My message would be don't do it, because you're putting your life at risk carrying it, as I said, and you're putting others at risk. I think if you do carry a knife, seek help. I think there are lots of organisations that would help you to find out the reasons why you're carrying a knife, and hopefully to prevent you from actually going down in a box like my son did.
Thank you very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you
as well, John Sutherland. Thank you as well, John Sutherland. Thanks for your time, Thanks for your time, all of you.
The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
That's right.
Dr. Umar Johnson.
Peace and love. Peace and love, family. All is well. Glad to be back.
Now let's get right to it, man. In light of everything that's going on, what are the solutions? I think we've discussed the problem so much. What are the solutions?
All right. Before I state the solution, I would have to challenge you on that. Because although we talk about the problems a lot of people don't understand how the problem operates.
Gotcha.
Let me give you an example. Take miseducation.
Okay.
People know the children aren't learning. They know black boys are not graduating. They know special ed is an issue. They know ADHD is a problem. But they don't know how this operates. They don't understand how the child goes from the classroom into the special education system.
Okay.
So they have to be taught how it operates. You follow? So we understand that police genocide is a problem in the black community. We understand that structural inequality, disproportionality, i.e. racism, is a problem. But do we understand how racism operates? So I think that once you understand how the problem operates and manifests itself, you're now in a position to solve it. Someone comes to me for therapy. Before I do any therapy, what I do, a clinical history. Is there depression in your family? Have you been depressed before? Have you ever contemplated suicide? So I have to understand your background and how you've been living your life in order to solve your current everyday problems. So now, coming to the present, what we're seeing going on around the country, let's be honest. Africans were brought to America to serve. We're no longer necessary for the American economic order to operate. They don't need us to function. That explains the purging. That explains the ethnic cleansing.
Even with all these Negroes making money?
Well, remember now, when you look at the black folks who are rich, they are a small percentage of the general body politic of the community. You understand? 85% of black folks are struggling. Half of our children grow up in poverty. Most of our single-parent black mothers are poor, even with a burgeoning rate of black women earning their college degrees. So simply put, black America is suffering despite the television projection of success. Yes, we are more educated than ever before. We have the bachelors, we have the masters, we have the doctorates. But that education has not taken place alongside an increase in wealth acquisition. We're smarter, but we still don't own anything.
But we know we're poor. We know some of us are not well educated. We know some of us have a lot of problems due to where we're growing up in our environment.
Yes.
But besides all of that, we got a bigger problem with racism. The way that other people look at us.
I agree.
You know what I mean? But I'm not saying it's right, but the way we look at ourselves is bad too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because if I'm walking down the street and I see some brothers with some hoods on, it makes me think twice.
Right.
So if it makes me think twice, I know it's going to make somebody else think twice, but it doesn't give us doesn't give them the right to put a.
But that's based off your experiences, though.
But it is based off my experience.
It's also based off conditioning. The conditioning is critical. Media is critical to the social agenda of any country. You understand? You take Adolf Hitler. Before he did what he did, in Germany, he conducted a media campaign that sought to destroy the image of the European Jew in the German mind before the physical Holocaust began. Same thing in America. Before you begin taking the black life, you must kill the image of the black life. So when you look at gangster rap, which plays a hand in it, okay, when you look at the way in which we're portrayed in movies, when you look at the way in which we're portrayed on the radio, popular media, magazines, it is in a very negative way, as if to say these people, the world would be better off without these people.
That's why they release people criminal records when they kill them.
Exactly. In other words, it's not so bad that he died because he went to jail anyway. So you have to kill the image before you kill the person. Why? Because people will take up for people who are unjustly treated. But if you can convince the world that we will be better off without these people by killing their image, then when the physical carnage begins, no one will care.
How do we change that, though? How do we change the way that America looks at African Americans, and how do we change the fact that these racist individuals, racist police officers, stop pulling out the gun? See, I think you have to penalize them. Meaning, it's kind of like a kid. Your kid does something bad, and you say, okay, it's okay. He's going to continue to do it. But if you bust his ass, next time he's thinking about doing, he's going to be like, well, you know what, my pops is going to bust my ass. I feel like the police officers that kill African Americans, just kill people in general, they don't get penalized for it.
I agree with it. You're absolutely correct. For example, behavioral psychology, 2 basic laws is what? All behavior is a function of the context in which it takes place. The American racial hierarchy, it's a function of the context. And then it's a function of the consequences. You follow? So in other words, behavior never stands still. Whether it's you, whether it's a child, whether it's a country, whether it's the police, behavior is always getting worse or it's always getting better. So when Zimmerman wasn't punished for Trayvon, that automatically created a context for it to happen again. Do you understand? Walter Scott, Tamir Rice, it creates a context.
Michael
so the next police officer says, well, wait a minute, I can be a little bit more trigger happy because the last 5 black men and women, Sandra Bland, who were murdered by police, were not held accountable. So when you do nothing about misbehavior, then you're actually supporting its repeating itself.
Now, what do protests do? Because people protest and they say, and I love the unity, and I love the unity of African American people. I wish we could be more unified when it's not just a brother dying. But I feel like sometimes the protest, what is it getting accomplished?
Okay.
And the reason I ask that is because, you protest, you shut down a highway, there's an ambulance that's trying to get somebody to a hospital, that person dies in the ambulance. I'm stuck in traffic, I can't pick up my kid at 5 p.m. So what is the protest act?
Despite all the murders, despite an unemployment rate and a dropout rate that is greater under a black president than it was under the 2 previous Republican presidents, black people have remained silent. Obama has ignored black folk. In fact, we are the only so-called minority population in the country for which he has done nothing nor has spoken significantly for our issues. Compare us to LBGT. They got 3 laws under Obama, 3 That is unprecedented. How many laws did black people get under Obama to protect us from police genocide, or even to improve the schools or to reduce incarceration?
Wow.
0. Okay, they got a Supreme Court justice. Latinos got a Supreme Court justice. LBGT got a Supreme Court justice. President Obama had the opportunity to appoint the first African-American female Supreme Court justice, and he chose not to act. It's not all his fault, though. We have created a context where the president can ignore black people and get away with it because we told the entire world when he was elected that all he had to do was just be black and we were fine. Remember?
Yeah, we didn't.
He doesn't have to do anything but be black. That is the worst thing you can say as a marginalized, oppressed group in such a racist country as this, as to tell the world that the president, the executive branch of the United States government, does not have to be accountable for you.
That's for any head of state, though. Any head of state
Yes.
we elect, we need to push
I agree.
and make sure things happen.
But Obama is the first president out of 44, the first one from George Washington up, that has not have to deal with any sort of public criticism from black people. And if he leaves office without any, here's the problem. If we let Obama leave office without any condemnation from the black community, by virtue, you cannot hold Hillary or Trump accountable for what they do not do for black people, because you have now created a precedent where a president can come in for 8 years, ignore you, even with police genocide, and not receive any criticism.
Why do people make excuses? You know, and I was always mad. I was upset about this because I felt like he was our president, you know, and I felt like when certain things happen, I felt like he should be on the front lines because he's dealt and seen, and I'm sure he's been pulled over before. I'm sure he's been racially profiled before. So it kind of bothers me when I see a lot of these individuals get shot and killed, and you don't really hear much from them.
Exactly.
Even to the thing with, you know, when he flew back to go to the you know, the funerals and
Yes.
speak to the officers in Dallas, I thought that was great. But then I also thought, well, what about Baton Rouge?
Exactly.
What about
Exactly.
Minnesota?
Exactly.
What about Ferguson?
What
He's
about
not going to do
Ferguson?
that because President Obama understands something that most blacks in America do not understand. The first business of America is racism. Let's be clear about something. Most white people in America, okay, are also suffering economically, right? So if I'm white in a country based on white privilege, what is my claim to fame if I don't have a decent education, don't have a good job? For many white people in this country, their only claim to fame is the fact that I can say I exercise privilege vis-a-vis black people. Obama understands that. So America is held together by the fact that the poor white man understands that he still exercises a privilege that the rich black man does not.
And that's what Donald Trump is reminding them. Donald Trump's reminding all the poor
Donald
white
Trump
people.
changed the game, and let me tell you why. The United States power structure underestimated the impact of an unapologetically honest fool over the American electorate. Do you understand? In other words, Trump is saying to white folks what white
Poor white folks, too.
yes, poor white folks. So you got a rich, wealthy white man appealing. The reason white folks are not rallying behind Hillary the way that the power structure wants them to is because Hillary is the same old thing. She's Clinton all over again. She's Obama all over again.
Correct.
She's a Bilderberg. She's
Talking
politically
points.
correct.
Yeah.
Her whole message is scripted. Trump's is not. So the issue now is, how do we engineer an election where Hillary wins? Because right now, Trump is carrying the momentum. See, remember now, people don't choose the president anyway, but you want the people to choose the person you wanted. So the illusion of democracy continues to prevail. America is not a democracy. America is a republic. That's why when people pledge the flag, and I hope there's no black boys pledging the flag, but when people pledge the flag, they pledge the flag to the republic. The word democracy is not in the pledge. The word democracy is not in the preamble. The word democracy is not in the Constitution. The word democracy is not in any of the 50 state constitutions. So why is America called a democracy when it's really a republic? Because it is the illusion of inclusion, the belief that the people actually control its leaders when it does not.
So with that said, right, for as much as we know that America has a history of racism, institutionalized racism, systemic racism, why did Barack Obama become president? Why did they allow Barack
Excellent
to become
question.
president?
Okay, every president that is elected is given a domestic mandate and an international mandate. There's something they need you to do domestically. There's something they need you to do internationally. For President Obama, his international mandate was to reopen Africa's resources to Western exploitation.
Right.
George Bush destroyed the economic conversation between America and Africa. And as you know, Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth. No country can survive without it. If you have a cell phone, laptop, television, car, airplane, it requires a substance, a material called coltan. The Congo is the #1 producer of coltan on the globe. No Congo, no cell phones. So America needs Africa. Bush destroyed the relationship, though, with the African Union. With Obama's father being Kenyan and his mother being white, you understand? He was the perfect person to put in the White House to reopen up that relationship with Africa, which he has done, okay? And through AFRICOM, which is African Command, President Obama has successfully recolonized Africa in the name of Western financial interest at a rate we haven't seen since Africa was under colonialism. So he succeeded internationally. That was the international mandate. Get the money back from Africa, the gold, the diamonds, the oil, the coltan, get it back. He got it.
Some people would say that Barack did,
What's the domestic mandate?
The domestic mandate. The reason President Obama was made president domestically is to brainwash and manipulate Black America long enough so the American power structure could take every civil right that our ancestors fought for and give it to every other minority group. So by the time Obama leaves office, all of our rights will have taken from the other minority groups, and we will be back in the 1960s Jim Crow style.
So how does that work? Because I keep looking at the Constitution like, did they remix it for black people?
It doesn't apply to you anyway. Yeah. Remember now, when the fourth... Two-thirds of the states to ratify an amendment. They said we're not giving black folks equal protection under the 14th Amendment. Equal protection under the law. But the 1866. But the 14th Amendment isn't ratified till 1868. You know why? Because you need 2/3 of the states to ratify an amendment. They said we're not giving black folks equal protection under the law. So what were you between 65, emancipation, and 68, ratification of the 14th Amendment? You were simply a resident, not a citizen. Black people in America today are still residents, not citizens. And we confuse the words liberty with freedom. Liberty and freedom are not the same. White people have freedom. Black people have liberty. Freedom is the ability to make decisions without external control. Liberty is the ability to make decisions because and external control gave you the privilege. Do you see the difference? One of them, you got people doing what they want to do. The other, you can do what you want to do within these constraints because we still own you. That's exactly why Abraham Lincoln emancipated the slaves. Emancipation simply means to let go from bondage. It also means a transference of ownership from the individual to the state. They never eliminated slavery. They just transformed it.
Now, people would say that Barack Obama did Obamacare, which helped a lot of African Americans get health care. They would say that he did that for African Americans. They would also say that he opened up the White House to a younger audience.
That's your shirt, by the way.
Thank you,
my college tour.
Thank you, appreciate it. They said that, that there are stuff that he does for the African American community. They say his hands are tied behind his back. There's no support in Congress. They said he's opened up the White House to musicians, artists, to kids that normally wouldn't get a chance to see the White House, wouldn't get a chance to be in the White House, wouldn't get a chance to learn in the White House. They said he's done a lot for youth. You know? Do you agree? Or?
I totally disagree. What has Obama do to change the intentional exploitation of black children in special education? What has Obama done to increase the rate of African American teachers and principals? What has Obama done to modernize the schools in predominantly African American school districts? What has Obama done to reduce the suspension and expulsion rate of black children? I don't care how many Negroes are dancing in the White House, singing in the White House, and cooning in the White House. What have you done of substance systematically to improve the quality of life for black folk as you have done to improve the quality of life for Latinos, immigrants, and LBGTs?
Have you ever seen a good president in your lifetime?
No, you can never do that because America is based off racism. It was founded on racism, which is ironic because when you listen to CNN, and I was watching D.L. Hughley with the little piece that he had, they always talk about playing the race card. You understand? That is the most misleading concept I've ever heard of, playing the race card. When we was brought up here in slavery, okay, was that playing the race card or was that racism?
That was racist.
Do you understand?
Word up.
America is racism.
From slavery to segregation.
America
to
is
Jim Crow.
racism. When Birth of a Nation came out, the first major motion picture, which was a story about how letting black folks out of slavery would simply destroy the social context of America, guess where it was played? In the White House. The president had a private viewing of Birth of a Nation.
Right, but you know,
Hold on, did Nate Parker Nat Turner movie?
No. He sarcastically named his Nat Turner movie after the original Birth of a Nation to take hit at it.
Got you.
Yes.
But you know, a lot of people,
And we was at Nat Turner Land 2 days ago with the college tour.
a lot of people say that, that's not necessarily true. They say that HBCUs are not warranted now, that they should be, historically black colleges are not needed. They say,
Exactly.
the NAACP is not needed.
Exactly. And where did that argument come from, Envy? The argument came from since you got a president in the White House.
Said the other day. So I wanted your opinion on what you felt about HBCUs and the NAACP because she feels like it's not necessarily warranted, that it should be open to everybody. And that it's
Let
not
me say
needed.
this. As long as something is being done special to the black man and woman, something must be done specifically for the black man and woman to counteract that. So, for example, earlier when you said the Obamacare and things like that, there are black folks who benefited from that envy. But in order to help us, you have to do something specifically for us because our history is specific. We're the only people in this country who are not of white skin who cannot be deported, which is the central challenge of the black predicament. What did W.E.B. Du Bois say? He said the number one problem of the 21st century will be the color line. I would take it a step further. The number one problem of the 21st century in America is what do we do with 40 million black folks who we do not want and cannot deport? This is why we are kept from realizing our true gifts and talents because you cannot be sent back to Africa. Slavery psychologically destroyed your connection to your mother continent. For example, Chinese can be sent back to China. Latinos can be sent back to Cuba, Puerto Rico, or points beyond. Okay, an East Indian can be sent back to India. Okay, an Arab can be sent back to whatever Arabian nation from which they come. Where do you send African Americans back to?
Because I'll be lost in Africa.
Because your psychological connection was destroyed. You understand? So what do you do with these people?
Chick-fil-A in Africa, bro.
Cut it out. What do you do with these people who you do not want and cannot deport? You must create a system of genocide from within that seeks to remove them. That's why mass incarceration will never change. This is why people keep saying they spend millions of dollars on prison. It costs less to send them to school. So why are you spending this money on jail instead of sending them to school? Because this ain't about money. This is about an America that is free from black people. Police extermination feeds that. Abortion, which is the number one killer. Most people don't understand this. More black babies are murdered in the stomach than they are on the street corner. And why? Because a black woman growing up in poverty with already a couple of children, seeing how hard it is to make ends meet, is probably going to think about potentially terminating that pregnancy. It's not a moral issue. It's a political, economic, white supremacist issue. Why bring another life in this world so they can only be murdered by the police like Trayvon?
Or just struggling in the hood.
Or just struggling in the hood.
Do you think the issue with cops is a black-white thing or a police?
Without question.
Or a police abusing power thing?
It's both. Remember, when slavery ends in 1865, there are no national incarceration systems. Most states didn't even have a fully functioning prison system. Guess when they created the prison system? In 1865. That's when they gave you the first statewide prison systems. Why? Because we got 4 million black folks we just left out of slavery. They don't have jobs. We're not going to give them any, so that means they got to do what to eat, Envy? Rob and steal. So we're going to create vagrancy laws. If I catch you stealing anything, guess what? That's a felony. I'm going to put you on the chain gang, and you're going to be on the chain gang for 10 years for stealing a lollipop. This is what they did. You could go to jail for not having a job. You could go to jail for being homeless. They made simple, petty offenses major felonies. So that from the beginning of so-called emancipation, the prison system existed for one reason: to remove black men from the society. The jail is a slave ship that sits on land instead of water. But here's the point I need y'all to get. The reason we're struggling so much as a people is because we're not given systematic access to wealth. Let me give you an example. Chinese, Arab, East Indian, they come to America. They can walk into any bank and get a loan. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, but many of them. In fact, some of them don't even have to get a loan from Wells Fargo, Chase Manhattan, or Bank of America. And I'm just using them to make the point. They show up in America with a long line of credit from their native country. They come into the ghetto, open up 10 stores, 5 supermarkets, 3 hotels. Black folks still struggling. And then people look at us and say, you know why you're struggling? Because you're lazy. The Chinese guy over here been here 5 years. The East Indian been here 10 years. The Arab only been here 8 years. He got 5 gas stations. What's your excuse? Let me tell you what our excuse is. We are systematically denied access to wealth. Do you understand? So we can't build that hospital they built. We can open up 10 supermarkets. I can't get 10 gas stations in 3 weeks because you're going to routinely deny me access to wealth. You'll give me a small business loan. And here's the kicker. Let me ask you a question. Why would they give you a loan for a student loan for college? They'll give you a car loan for the car. They'll give you a loan for your house. So you can get a mortgage loan. You can get a student loan. You can get a car loan. But you can't get a business loan. Wait a minute now. The education is going to cost me $100,000. The car is going to be about $70,000. The house is going to be $250,000. Why do you approve that, but you don't approve the business loan, which is probably for half the amount? Because if I finance your empowerment, that disrupts my system of extermination and genocide. You cannot kill a people who you are financially empowering. So we are kept without access to wealth. That's why the hood is full of mom and pop stores. That's why the hood is full of struggling businesses, because America has a policy where you do not empower black people for their own benefit. Any other minority? Yes. Why? Because if they get out of hand, they can be sent home. The black man cannot be sent home. Slavery is older than America. America was born on July 4th, 1776. Slavery in the colonies began on August the 20th, 1619.
Now, with that said, how could an economic boycott work? Because we was talking about this morning.
I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, we boycott, where do we go? We don't have black-owned businesses to shop
Listen,
at.
an economic boycott would be a very, very...
Another important area that I firmly believe is overlooked, is teaching young people. Another important area that I firmly believe is overlooked is teaching young people about beliefs and value systems. Is teaching them to understand their belief systems and also to understand the values that they hold in their lives. And this is one of the solutions, in my opinion, to why a lot of young people are doing things like committing crime, violent acts on the street, and some of them even murder, because they have no no understanding of values in society. And so, but if we take it back, and this is where the parents will come in, the value system is something that you need to understand as a parent, because a lot of parents out there believe that they are failing their children. And they, when young people get to 12, 13 years old and they start changing, parents believe that they've failed that child. But you have to have a firm understanding of what the value system is. How do values work in your house? So you've got to understand that between the ages of 0 and 7, the child or your child gets his values from you at home. That's called the sponge stage. That's where everything you tell them about the world is correct. Everything you tell them about, be cautious out there because this might happen, cross the road this way, that might happen, don't smoke. Between the ages of 0 and 7, your child will swearing. Your child might be coming home acting a certain way. Your child might want to join a gang. Your child might be coming home because between the ages of 8 and 13, they're going through a different process. Because between the ages of 8 and 13, they're going through a different process of building beliefs and values. So you've got to learn to understand that the support is needed during the 8 to 13 stage where they are going out and experimenting with new values. I mean, for example, if you look at the amount of children that experiment with alcohol and tobacco during those years, and you start wondering, we've never taught them at home to do that. Where are they getting this from? They're simply testing what's going on in the world. And so for a parent, it's quite difficult because understanding those changes without understanding, a human being's belief and value systems leaves you in a position where you believe you're failing your child and you don't know what to do to engage your child. You think you've lost your child. But it's around this age you have to focus your support on working out what are these new values, where are they coming from for a start, and then what you can do as a parent is you can test those values. For example, if your child is now saying that smoking, and this is why I'm always talking about music and the effects of music, because those people, those superheroes who are in the world now, are the people that young people look for to be role models. And they might have completely different values to the values you have at home, but your child is going to test those values that superhero has. So that age between 14 simply because they're testing the values that you've laid down for them. And the funny thing about values is where your child is looking deep into the world to experiment with as many things as possible, because all your child is simply doing is testing to see whether or not between the ages of 0 and 7 you were telling them the right things. And so your child might get involved in a violent act, or your child might get caught smoking, simply because they're testing the values that you've laid down for them. And the funny thing about values is this: when a child becomes an adult, so let's talk about 21 years on, it's really strange how a child or a young adult starts to revert back to the values of 0 to 7, especially when they start having children. You'll find that instinctively us as humans start reverting back to those values which we knew were the core values of the house at the time, and the values that actually helped us to survive up until now. So it's really strange. So young people are going through this process where they're looking at these idols. A lot of these idols are singing negative lyrics. They're telling them what to do. They're showing them a lifestyle, which in my belief is the wrong age to show them, because now young people are walking around believing that they need to have diamonds, Rolex watches and big cars at 16 years old. So this is because they're getting the values from these artists that are showing them these things, and they're showing them it's possible. So for me, values is an important part of understanding your child's behavior, and it's something that you should prepare for as a parent, because you're going to face those things. You're going to face the fact that your child comes home and there's conflict between the values, or they believe something completely different to you. But it's okay, because you need to understand what they're believing or what their values are at the time, and then you need to try and understand more where they're coming from. So are values and beliefs important in raising a child? You better believe it.
If I was a young person in this time, I'll be frightened, I'll be worried. My parents had that colonial mentality. It wasn't for bad, it was for good. They only meant good. However, I feel for those who need help. Because one of the things is, you approach some youth workers today and ask them about culturalization, values, customs and norms, and you're on your own. As a young person growing up in this country, I know more about English values, customs and norms, Irish values, customs and norms, Welsh and Scottish. It has taken the mainstream part of society 40 to 50 years to understand about those who came from the Caribbean to England. And it was only in the last 15 years where you look back on the forms and you will see the word Black British. To see the word Black British on a form talks about acceptance. But we never came here in the 50s and 60s. We've been here from time. If you take time to look, and look about Ipswich Man, it will tell you about a person who they dug up, and they found that this person was a traveller. That person's hue was of colour. But he's one of the founding people of that area. But yet still, up until today, you talk about a black person, they will tell you, oh, they're Afro-Caribbean or West Indian. No understanding about Black British. So is that deliberate or a failure, a willful failure not to understand, not to want to understand? When there are problems, Afro-Caribbean, a lot of your so-called problems in this society are Black British. They adopted and assimilated the culture, values and norms of here. When you work and deal with their parents, you know that they are law-abiding citizens. Those things I feel for young people. Now you're asking me about if I was a young person in this time. I also know that where you have young people who need support and understanding, it's a postcode lottery. You've had many organizations set up in the past who are doing extremely good work, breaking all records, setting up foundations and processes where change was happening on a regular basis. And fundamental changes were taking place. But as usual, miraculously, they lose funding. Or the ethos is changed and it closes. And then they have the cheek to turn around and say children need role models. Role models. But the whole setup is geared to separate man from woman. Interesting. You have programs which have been running for centuries in the sense of breeding programs in the Caribbean, around the world. If we take a time and look at Barbuda. Barbuda was an island which was used as a breeding colony. The papers in which you wish to read is called the Codrington Papers. Now, if I'm a young person of today and I wish to recall, revisit, find out about my past or my ancestors' past, will they be able to tell me this? What worldview do they have? A lot of youth workers who I speak to now, when you ask them anything about politics, they cannot tell you. But politics is something that runs your life. So if you know not of the political structure and what's happening in society, how are you going to help? How can you help others who share the same luggage as yourself, but they are younger than you? And as they grow, their luggage becomes heavier than yours. What good are you to them?
Robbie Earle joins me in the studio this morning. Robbie, let's discuss this. I know it's a topic that's both very personal to you, very emotional to you. You want very strongly to talk about it.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that. Your reaction, if you could, to what happened to Raheem Sterling yesterday and to what he had to say on Instagram today.
Disappointed, Rebecca, that we're having this conversation. Deeply saddened at what happened to Raheem Sterling. I've talked to lots of players back in England, current and ex-players, majority of them black players, and there is a feeling that Raheem Sterling gets racist connotations, gets racist criticism based on incidents that happened to him that wouldn't be the same if he was a white player, and that's hugely disappointing. When Raheem Sterling's one of those players back who avoids the media when he can, whether it's about his football or anything else, but he's felt at this point he has to put himself forward. I think he's like 24 years of age. I think his birthday's over the weekend. And the maturity in his game on the field, and I think has brought a maturity off the field, where he feels what he's saying at the moment, Raheem Sterling, isn't for his own benefit. He's doing it for the benefit of young black players, as we saw, who are getting labelled in a way that when you use inflammatory words, when the vocabulary and some of the statements that are made around some of these black players is so derogatory, you wonder if the colour of the skin is having something to do with that. And I'm not one of these guys who likes to bang the racist drum. That's not my style. But there is a time when you have to put yourself forward, and I think it's one of those times now, and that's why I was determined, as emotional and as difficult as this conversation is, to make sure I get out there and say things. And when people on social media, with tens and millions of followers, are sort of saying, well, you know, white players in the past have got this, and are naming those players, Rebecca, that's at the very least irresponsible, but of not fueling the situation and fueling the position we're in at the moment.
Do you feel, Robbie, in your opinion, that football has gone backwards in the way that it deals with racism?
Yes, I do. And it's such a pity, Rebecca. I worked during the mid-90s with a number of prominent black and white players with organisations in English football to work hard to stamp out racism. And we put education programmes in place, and we went to schools and we visited people, and there was a movement to eradicate it from the game. 25 years on, people are saying, is it a one-off incident? One-off is one too many. And the most difficult thing for me today to say is, I've failed Raheem Sterling, and I've failed the group coming behind him. And that's the most difficult thing of all, because we thought we had this thing nailed, and we haven't. It's a cancer, Rebecca. And cancers, unless you stay on top of them, unless you are vigilant, will come back. And it's starting to creep into English football, and it's such a shame.
Well, I don't think anybody for one second would ever think you failed anybody, Robbie, because you fought the fight. if you could, for those of us who have never experienced it, can you share with us? Raheem Sterling said he laughed this off at the game on Saturday. Can you tell us how it feels?
I can, because that very phrase, laughed it off, is something that you endure, that any black player will tell you. And I've not had maybe the position where I've never been white for one day, Rebecca, so I don't know it from that side. I only know it from a black player who's an ex-professional now, who's working in the media. And laughing things off, or your pacifier. Laughing things off, or when you're inside and it's hurting, you do the right smile as if, well, I have to accept this is how it is. And that should never be the case. Raheem Sterling should never have to laugh up that people are shouting racial abuse at him, that he's getting abused because of where he lives, how much money he earns, that he moves to another football club. And again, I have to go back and say it's almost like we need to start again. We need to address this and make sure this isn't something that starts to grow in our game, because we saw it through the 80s and 90s in the game, and it was something that has no place whatsoever.
Robbie, we appreciate your eloquency and your insight. Thank you so much to Robbie Earle this morning.
Rise, sisters, queens, wipe the tears from your eyes. Sisters, queens, rise up, for you are a woman. Sisters, queens, empresses, rise. Sisters, queens, you're so loving and wise. Sisters, rise up, for you are a woman. Woman, we need you, 'cause the world's gone topsy-turvy. Woman, we need you, to balance the male and female energy. Woman, we need you, to return us to oneness and unity. Woman, we need you, we need you. Sisters, queens, empresses, rise. Sisters, queens, wipe the tears from your eyes. Sisters, queens, rise up, for you are a woman. Sisters, queens. Rise, sisters, queens, wipe the tears from your eyes. Sisters, queens, rise up, for you are.
Yes, greetings. This is Find Your Voice on SLR Radio, and we do have a special guest online, straight from Gambia, and we do have. Is it Shakira? Can you hear me?
I can, barely, but it's
Hold on.
okay.
We're very low for some reason.
Yeah, and you're very fuzzy.
Okay, hold on, babe. We cannot hear you. You there? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, we're just having a... Just bear me a second. Some little technicality here. You there?
Yeah, and my reception's not very good tonight.
Okay, we can hear a little bit more.
Slow.
Okay, then you're slightly more louder now. Okay, fantastic. Okay, then I want you to introduce yourself to the listeners. As I said, we have a sisters from Gambia. Introduce your full name, and your status, because all I want people to know that we have no lightweight, right? And to kind of work a negotiation for sister to join us, because she's busy bee. I call her busy bee as well. She's just and finally she's in Gambia, as I said. You know what I mean? She's in Gambia. So we have status. So give people your full name, because we don't have time to go into your business right now, because we're going to be here for another half an hour. We just if we go through your CV, just let people know your full name and the kind of things you do now. Come true.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Shakina Chinadu, and I live in the Gambia. Originally from the United Kingdom. But 4 years ago I moved here. And it's been an interesting journey, because I came just to do my health business, which I started in the UK. But the ancestors have had other jobs for me to do. And it seems as though they want me to more help our people get over and reconnect with their African roots. So I'm currently working with the Constitution Review Commission, where they are drafting the Constitution. So fighting for citizenship and land ownership in the Gambia. I'm also called a lady builder.
You call lady, hold on a second. Them call you lady builder?
Lady builder, they call me here.
How come them call you lady builder? What kind of...
Sorry?
Why them call you lady builder?
Because I build houses for people here. I'm a building contractor.
All right. So tell me so people want a house built, you're the person they need to speak to, yeah?
Yes. I'm on my third house right now that I'm building for people who are living in the UK. Just like anywhere in the world, you've got to watch over the workmen.
Yes.
So that's my job, to be on site, to go and buy all the materials, to work with the architect, make sure they're following the plans, things like that. And it's very interesting. I also sell land to our people, and so far I've created 4 housing estates. I'm on my 4th one now. And it's just making sure that our people can afford land, and it's creating a bridge for them to come home, because it's really important that our people have a plan B. We know now that you can't depend on staying in the UK. We saw Windrush. We don't know what's happened with Brexit. Our people need a way out. And also, I think it's just important that we do connect with our ancestral home. And, not everybody can live here full time, like people like myself and others. But even if it's 6 months of the year that you get away and come here, you'll have a better quality of life.
Right. So, what made you go in the first place? Because I understand you've been there for the last 15 years, 18 years, something like that?
Yeah, I've been coming here for about 15 years, and really sort of just dipping my toes back in the UK from time to time. But this has really been my home since 2005. And but coming back to do a bit of work, seeing the children through their education, and as soon as the last child finished her university degree, I decided to pack up and leave and come and live here permanently.
Because I got the impression that you know, you was living in the UK. I know you go to Gambia from time to time. Cause last time every time I see you, you say, yeah, you're going to Gambia and them thing. But you know, you had them kind of solid plan, you know, them kind of big plan. Yeah.
I had a 12-year plan before I moved.
All right.
And I worked to effect that plan to enable me to come and live here permanently, which I did.
So I just want to bring the reasoning forward, because you talk about citizenship and so forth. So why is it no, and correct me if I've misrepresented information, that I understand that you have to be there, you know, for about 15 years. For example, those who are coming from the UK, you know, you have to be living there for 15 years before you get any kind of citizenship. But I understand, no, you're changing the where you're working with to change the law, so to speak. But why all of a sudden this has come up? And what? Yeah.
Okay, so in the 1997 Constitution, under the former president, there were two ways to naturalise and get citizenship. The first one is if you are married for 7 years to a Gambian and living here continuously.
Yeah.
And even if that marriage had ended, as long as you were married and living here continuously for 7 years, you could apply for citizenship. If you are not married, again, living here continuously, you would be able to apply after 15 years. Now, 15 years is a very long time.
Yeah, it's a long time, not man.
Too long
for
people who have descended from Africa.
Yes.
Other people, yes, if you want to put that on them, but I don't think it's fair for us to be caught into that. So, in October 2018, I found out that the Constitution was being redrafted, and wrote a letter to the Constitution Review Commission to ask them for an audience to go and do a presentation with them. They agreed. I did a presentation and explained to them that we wanted an exception clause to become citizens in Gambia. And what I said to them is that I didn't just want a particular president to say, oh, here's, 50 citizenships for particular people, law, so there's no confusion. And so I said to them, why not do an exception clause for us that's fast-tracked? So instead of 15 years, why not look at 2 to 4 years maximum of living in the country, and we can apply for citizenship. Also, it needs to be dual citizenship. We need to be able to hold on to that British passport, because that's part of our reparations.
Yes.
That passport allows us to travel around the world quite freely.
Yes.
So we should be able to hold on to that. And also, why I wanted it in law as well is because it's generational, so that our children and our children's children shouldn't have to fight for this again, because once it's in law, that's it. It's written. It's solid.
Okay.
And
I just want to.
And they have listened.
Sorry, Mrs. Go on. Continue.
I'm saying they have listened, and they're making a recommendation to Parliament to consider what we want in the Constitution. So that's a real step forward for us, because there's no other African country doing that at the moment, where we are actually negotiating with them to put it into law, not just a subjective president giving, a few citizenship, but we're saying we want it in law for all.
Right. Let me just jump in here, because and from understand that you get a lot of support from the Gambian people them out there as well. They're very much supporting what's your cause, so to speak. Yeah.
Very much supportive. Very supportive, yeah.
Okay then. And it's quite interesting, because one of the things I get to understand is that quite a few people are returning back to the motherland, especially to Gambia, what I know of, right? And you know, and we want to contribute something back to the. Just want to go there, and the response we're getting from the people, from the Gambians, is overwhelming. Because funny enough, right, my brother was out there just the other day, just over the holiday period, and he said that it was just amazing experience because, you know, through his friends was going out there, and we do know somebody who's going out regular, and he said he had a great time, and and it's really encouraging. And so I saw something on WhatsApp where in America, these so-called movie stars, they're going back to Ghana. They have something called a big door of no return or something like that. Some big thing they might do out there, So
the year of return, Ghana had the year of return, the right of abode in 2019.
Okay, so a lot of the people that are going back to.
The only criticism I would say with that is that I think it's become more like a fashion fad for celebrities, rather than a reconnection to our roots. And I think that should be first and foremost, not just picture taking and just giving a few movie stars citizenship. It needs to be taken more seriously than that.
Well, one thing I'll say is that, my sister, that the ancestors, they're working right through you, man, because we could feel your vibes, your love, your energy, and you have that kind of, even though I can't see you physically, I could see you physically, but you got that kind of spiritual vibes, and the ancestors are working right through you. We can feel that right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do feel your vibe. So the question will be, where does the future holds for you? What is your plan for next? Well, like I said, you had a 12-year plan, so you must have another 30, 40 years plan in front of you. So what's your future? What's the future holds for you? What's your plan, so to speak, for next 5, 10, 15 years or whatever?
Okay, so as I said, I've got 4 estates now.
Yes.
For diaspora. So I want to continue with that as long as the demand is there. If people want to come, I will help them come and settle and navigate themselves in Africa. Also continue to assist them building their houses, give them ideas for businesses to help develop the continent, and really just come and place our feet where we were stolen from. But also, I think what's important for people to realize that every time we come home, we bring the ancestors home with us.
Okay, say that again.
Sorry?
No, say that bit again. That's powerful. Every time you come home, you bring the ancestors.
Every time we bring them with us, because they can't come without us. They need us to come home.
All right.
So on the 24th of November last year, I put on an event to celebrate the first housing estate, and which is called the Door of Return, not the Door of No Return. It's called the Door of Return.
Turn of Return.
And we celebrated and brought the ancestors home, and we walked through the Door of Return. I had a special made with the Door of Return words on it, and we had a ceremony. We poured libation, and we invited the ancestors to come through that door and come home. And we had over 100 people attend, and each person went through the arch and brought their ancestors home with them.
Right. Okay.
I'll be doing that for every estate.
Okay then. Listen, if people want to get in touch with you or contact you, is there an email address? Because enough people know, like they have someone like you out there who's the head, someone they can trust. You know what I mean? It's good to know. So is there like an email address or they can contact you?
I have an email address, and it's Nubian, NUBIAN, LC @AOL.co.uk. I'll repeat that. Nubian, NUBIAN, LC @AOL.co.uk.
Okay then. Well, my sister.
You know, people can email me just for a chat. You know, how do I move? What's it like living in Gambia?
Yeah.
You know, how do I the West? Any advice, I'll try and help as much as I can.
And I'm really glad that, because you know, one of the stumbling block is that, and we have to be fair, we have to be truthful, that sometimes you don't know who to trust. You know what I mean? Because you hear, you go like for the Caribbean or Jamaica and them places, you go out there and say, yeah, you love it, and you want to build a yard and whatever, and you find that people rip you off, and you know it go time and time again. So it's good to know, so you have someone you can trust who's in your corner. See?
Yeah. Well, I let my clients speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I don't advertise. I don't go looking.
Mm-hmm.
People often recommend me.
Mm-hmm. Okay then.
And I prefer that.
Okay, well, my sister, I want to give thanks again, because you are one of our shining stars, you know, and you know, nothing but love we have for you. Nothing but love we have for you. And I want to continue every so often have a conversation with you, because you know you're the head out there, and we want to continue reasoning with you and so forth. See?
Thank you. Your support is really appreciated, because this is not easy.
No, I can imagine.
But it's got to be done.
Got to be done. Yeah,
it's
I can
got
imagine.
to be done.
Okay then. Okay, my sister, give thanks, yeah?
It's known around the world. It's in every baby, every boy and girl. I've got joy, I've got joy in my heart, yeah. 'Cause every day I give thanks for life. Joy. I've got joy in my heart, yeah. 'Cause every day, even though I'm feeling hurt and I'm left to kiss the dirt, yeah, I jump over the hurdles, I get up when I'm pushed down. Don't care what the obstacle, I keep on stepping through. 'Cause I've got joy. I've got joy in my heart, yeah. 'Cause every day I give thanks for life. I've got joy in my heart, yeah. Even though I'm feeling hurt and I'm left to kiss the dirt, yeah, I'll jump over the hurdles, I get up when I'm pushed down. No one can stand in my way, 'cause your love is in my heart. I've got joy. I've got joy in my heart, yeah. 'Cause every day I give thanks for life. Joy. I've got joy in my heart, yeah. just like you do. Don't kid yourself into thinking that she don't. She can fool around just like you do. Unless you give her all the loving she wants. Don't make the mistake of thinking old-fashioned. Times have changed from yesterday. No longer will those old double standards be accepted by the women of today. So when you think you're fooling her, she just might be fooling you. Remember, if you can do it.